I'm delighted to be here. On the 4th and 5th of June of this year, I was in Evanston, having been directed to be there by Ken Schubert, Zone 30's RI director. You never say no to an RI director. So I showed up in Evanston for 36 hours of drinking from a fire hose because it had just been announced to me that I was the new Zone 30 Public Image Coordinator. I have never been a public image coordinator, but over the course of 36 hours with the help of the staff there at RI, I became one. They slapped this badge on me, pushed me out the front door and said, "Go get 'em, Tiger." I was off then to Birmingham, Gardendale, for a success seminar. Zone 30 had 2 of them in June. And, of course, I'd never done that before. I was green as grass, folks. The paint had not even dried on me. And I'd been thrown into the midst of all these past district governors and highfalutin folks, and my job was to talk about public image. Well, while I was there in Gardendale, about 80 or so people, and when you're in a group that you've not met before, you sort of listen and look and observe and find out who's happening. And so as I began to meet Jerry, Beth, David, and Jack, as they sat over here in this area, they chatted a lot. They asked the best questions in the room. And they cut up and they had fun the whole time. And I said, "Who are those folks?" And they said, "Oh, that's 6780. And so I got to, yeah, I know. There she is, Beth. Beth, you having a good time today? She always has a good time. So after we got to know each other, and I sort of sat next to them because they were having a good time, Jack is very quiet, but Jack is very persuasive. I offered to come to any district in the zone to share public image. Well, Jack comes right over. He doesn't hesitate. He said, "Would you come to Knoxville this summer?" And I said, "Jack, I'd be glad to." I had no idea what the dates were necessarily, hadn't been set yet. We spent our summers in Portland, Oregon. So when Jack asked me, I was not about to say no to a district governor. So I said yes. So I'm here today at his invitation, and thanks to that rowdy group from 6780 that convinced me this is the best district in the zone. Can I get a round of applause? You've got some great things going on, and I'm going to share just a little bit with you today about the importance of public image. Everything that you have said this morning so far can be part of a public image campaign. I could write you a public relations plan right now based on things I've heard in this room this morning. You are not lacking for activities and things in your community that you can promote broadly to your community to cause people to think twice about being a member of your club. You do not have a membership problem. You've got a public relations and public image problem. And we need you to think about it because you've got 1,001 things you're going to do in your club this year as president. And here we are coming along from RI saying, and oh, by the way, you've got to do public relations. And you're thinking, oh, my goodness, what can I possibly do? The important thing to remember in the discussions that we're having today is that this is a long-range commitment. What RI is asking us to do is to take very seriously the business of our image. And what is that brand and that image around the world? Well, this empty slide really should contain the 1,800 different logos that Rotary has around the world. Logos and images and translations of those images. If you begin to look at that, you wonder how anyone knows who we are. And you're saying to yourself, but we all wear the pin, and we know the Rotary wheel is at the city limits. Isn't that our image? It may be in your town, but this is a worldwide organization. And the image and the brand has morphed and morphed and morphed, and it started to slip away. And our job through public relations is to bring it back. What is our image? Give me, off the top of your head, what is the image of Rotary? What do you think? Polio. Service. Meet and eat. Yeah. What else? Fellowship. Yes, it's all those things. But we don't have an image. What the research is finding is that we've done such a good job of hiding ourselves from the public that we don't have an image. Now, let's understand, there's good news in that, because we don't have to run out and immediately repair and fix something. That's the good news. We have all the assets of being a quality brand. We just got new and exciting work to do. We'll talk a little bit about social media and so forth and the importance that that can have. But it's very clear, again, this is from research of 10,000 Rotarians and others around the world. We spend a lot of time talking to ourselves. We're very inward focused. And we use language that no one else can understand. The PDG will be at the meeting on Thursday to work with the district nominees to present the PHFs to the new members of the, you get my drift? Then we take that language and we go directly to our club website, into our district websites, and we use that same language. And when you call up your home page and do this with an objective eye, when you call up that home page, it sounds like we're not talking to the rest of the world. And we're not. And that's one of the problems that we've got to address. It ain't bragging if it's true.
Unfortunately,
Need I say more? Wonderful project. Impactful, measurable, long-term, sustainable, and we don't tell anybody about it. Yes, ma'am.
You get fined for being in the paper.
Well, yeah, you get fined for being in the paper. That's the good news, though.
But if people are being,
That's about being
kind of example by doing something bad.
but it's about being proud. It's about being proud of being a Rotarian. And public relations can help you turn yourself outward toward your community. And remember, I'll say this over and over today, beat the drum. Beat the drum. I'm not talking to you about promotion. I'm not talking to you about special events. I'm not talking to you about putting out posters at the Subway restaurant. That's all support of one-time only events. I'm talking about a campaign that will be a legacy from your presidency to the next year, and beyond. We'll talk about how we do this, but I'm convinced we can improve our communications. Face outward. Face outward. Use language that others can understand. When someone stops you because you have a Rotary pin on and says, "What's Rotary?" what do you say? What do you say? Changing the world. Jim Thompson and I were talking about this earlier. He says, "What do you say?" World peace. And then they say, "What does that mean?" That's when you roll it out. Peace through service. They're short, little, impactful phrases that we can use to attract people's interest. And this is, public relations is about membership as much as anything. Remember that. Membership is going to be driven by what people in your community know about you or what they don't know. And if you let them get in a position of not knowing, you lose. Clarify our messages. Reestablish our brand. Now, let me do something quickly here to dissuade some of you that may have heard that Rotary is changing its brand. We're not. The RI directors have gotten messages from all over the world that the members are saying, "Don't change the brand," because some were saying, "Oh my gosh, they're going to change the Rotary wheel." That's not what this is about. This is about taking the elements that we have in place, the resources, the assets that we have in place around the world, and simply rebranding and refreshing the brand so that we can clarify a message. Yeah, look at those corporate names there. as you click through those, there's an image that pops into your mind of each and every one of those. You know them, you understand them, you appreciate their relevance in your lives, and you've had experiences with them. The Rotary Wheel has the same kind of impact. It's just that the messaging has been awkward, it's been confusing, it's been dispersed. We've got to do a better job so that we can, and this is a phrase from the research that's being done, so that we can get full credit for our good works. When the polio campaign, polio now is thought to be a Gates Foundation project, that hurts. And that's one of the things that the art directors observed that was beginning to occur, that the Gates Foundation, because they're a pretty good PR machine, they were beginning to get more recognition for the work that we had done than we were. We don't brag. But, as Barry Bryant said, ain't bragging if it's true. We have got to find a way to take your club and your district and this zone and become top of mind, top of voice in your local community. And there are ways to do that. And the research will help. Siegel and Gale, if you have a chance to go to their website, it's a powerful international branding firm that's working with Rotary. They're now in the second phase of a long 6-phase rollout, which it should end in the spring of next year when the RI directors will approve the recommendations from Siegel and Gale. And as I said a moment ago, we're refreshing the brand, not throwing it overboard, not altering it in any substantial way. AARP was a client of Siegel and Gale just a few years back, and as a result of the freshening of that brand, AARP added more than 1 million new members. And for those of you in the room, and there might be some that are associated with AARP, you've seen how their brand has changed in just the last 3 years. It's been significant. It's been unified, it's been clarified, it's been focused, and it pays off. The initial findings from Siegel and Gale through Phase 2 suggest that this organization has in place now strengths necessary for greatness. That's the phrase they use. Many organizations would give their right arm to have strengths necessary for greatness. Rotary already has that. Audiences, those to whom we appeal, want what Rotary offers. Rotary is ethical, it's sound, it's worldwide, it's inclusive, it's diversified, and it has deep roots. They're also suggesting in the research that the world is coming our way. Now, we are all struggling with membership, but the fact is people want to be involved. Some of you may have read part of a book written a number of years ago. Recently, a new edition has come out, Bowling Alone in America. Anyone ever encounter that? Robert Putnam's work? Yeah. He's a Harvard social scientist, and he did this exhaustive study going back to the turn of the 20th century right up until today. And there is a curve, if you will, that begins in about 1905, that peaks in about 1955, plateaus until about 1963, and starts to drift down. If you start at that curve back in the early days, 1905 or so, the Boy Scouts, the Community Chest, the Red Cross, other organizations were starting to blossom everywhere across this country. And it just boomed for 20 years or so. Some of the major organizations, philanthropic, non-governmental, and so forth, that we know today had their roots in about that time period. You come through the 50s after the end of the war, and membership is still growing. But late 50s, early 60s, there was a shift. And Putnam's book, the title, is the most telling part of all. In the 50s, some of you may have heard about it. So in the 50s, bowling leagues were a big thing. and people had bowling jackets and bowling shoes, and they had bags with bowling balls, and they had bowling leagues, and every Tuesday night it was this group, or Thursday night it was that group, and your parents were out and they were having a good time, and they were building community. We still have bowling in America. They're still building bowling alleys in America. But guess what? There are no leagues. People are bowling alone in America. And this loss of civic engagement, the loss of the capacity to build social capital, these are terms that Putnam uses, is at the heart of who we are and what we do. But we have those capacities, those skills, those capabilities inside Rotary today, which become the building blocks for a great brand strategy. So awake your public relations. Awake it. Let it loose. But make it focused, make it sustained, and make it cumulative. If you think that just one-off events will build your public relations, it won't. And you've got to find folks in your clubs, and they're there, that would take this on and enjoy working on this for a long term. Because as I said earlier, this is not just a one-year experiment. This is forever. Has your district Rotary PR chair been selected, Jack? Is that person? Okay. That person will be key to you because they're going to have some capacities to help your local chair take on projects, create momentum, understand how to use your time. Top of mind, share a voice. In today's media environment, where we are carpet bombed 24/7 by media. Has anybody been carpet bombed by media lately? Yeah, you bet you have. Anybody here in television, in advertising, radio, any experiences there? Remember when commercials on television were 30 seconds? Can you imagine 30 seconds? And then it became 15 seconds. Can you imagine? And guess what they are now? 7. And then they double pump. Have you been double pumped lately? Yes, you have. And you know you have. That's in a commercial break. They'll do maybe a 10-second followed by a different spot, and then that same 10 seconds starts over again. Hit you twice, just like that. Same spot. And you'll say, your reptilian brain will say, didn't I just see that? Didn't I just see that? You sure did. And you're going to see it again, too. And how many times you've said, dadgummit, I'm tired of seeing that commercial. Guess what they just did to you? They won. They being whoever's offering the message. The carpet bombing, excuse me, the carpet bombing comes in the form of radio, television, cable, internet, social media, billboards, and have you seen those billboards that look like they come out of off the field at UT? You know, they're the size of buses, and they are electronic. And it's some even driving around the streets of your town, changing every 30 seconds. And you're saying, what did I just see? That reptilian brain is just frazzled with all the images. You open up a website, and something up in the right-hand corner sort of wiggles at you, twinkles at you. And you go, what was that? Man, they're working us like crazy because the tools are out there to carpet bomb with media constantly. And an old ad man told me years ago, he said, I had a car dealership manager come to me and say, Jack, I know I'm spending 50% too much on advertising, I just don't know which 50% it is. To get your voice, your Rotary Club voice, known and recognized in the community, you have to find a way to get through the noise. The noise barrier is tremendous. And in advertising, the only way to get through the noise is called reach and frequency. reach, and frequency. Those are the terms that you'll begin to understand, because if you simply create a campaign that gets this far, and let's say you spent, I'm making this up, $1,000. Well, gee whiz, we spent $1,000 on promotion. You needed to spend $1,500 to get through the noise. And you have to find out what that point is, because if you spend here and fail, you'll never go back. You'll say, well, it didn't work. Didn't work. We can't advertise and promote. Too expensive. You got to find a way to get through. There are ways to do that. Your toolkit, now you may not have this toolkit prepared yet. It may not be readily at your elbow, but it's out there. TV and radio. You have television in your markets, and you have radio in your markets. You have television station managers in your community. You have radio managers. Are they members of your club? You have reporters. You have PR people that are working with the stations. Are they members of your club? You have newspaper publishers and editors in your community. Have they been invited to be members? Newspapers today are more local than ever before, even as they have cut reporters and bureaus and reduced perhaps local content. The success of local papers today is dependent upon their being more granular and more local. Guess what your Rotary Club is? It doesn't get any more granular in your town than your Rotary Club. What you're doing is important. Later in my presentation, I'll give you some hints about making your club even more important. Cable. Comcast, Charter, Time Warner, and Cox, from my little research, appear to be in this district. All those folks have managers. Find out who they are. Go visit them. They've got inventory that sometimes goes unused. And there may be ways for your club to have access to some of that inventory on the cable services. You have PEG channels in your communities. Those are the educational and public channels. They have all kinds of different names, governmental channels, that you can have access to. An example that I know of specifically in Frankfort, Kentucky, the PEG channel, it's the cable company in this case, records every Rotary Club meeting and plays it back that night and for multiple times during the course of the following week. They bring in the camera, they bring in the photographer, and they record that Rotary Club meeting. And what's also a great additional benefit to the club is the club has a digital recording in its archives forever of every speaker to the Frankfort, Kentucky Rotary Club. Folks, they are creating an archive that will be critical for that community. They had not even thought about it as an archive. They were just keeping the recordings. But suddenly now they have important people in that community for years that they now have in the Rotary archives. That's invaluable if you think about it in a digital world. So there are little things like that can be additional payoffs in your community. Outdoor. Has anyone here ever seen an empty outdoor board? Yeah, probably more so today than ever because of the economy. Excuse me. There are ways to get access to those boards at a reasonable price. If you pay for the cost of the plastic or the paper or whatever they're putting up, many of those board companies would rather have your public service image on that board than an empty board. Now, you'll have to work out the agreements with them specifically, but think about that as an option. If you want to have an impact in your town and there are boards that have high traffic but have been vacant for a while, that might be an opportunity for your Rotary Club. Social media. Social media is where the conversation is being held today. The conversation in your community exists in the Twitterverse, on Facebook, on Flickr, on all those platforms that are out there that, in my opinion, the first thing you need to do is to find a 13-year-old to be a member of your club. And you'd know exactly what I'm talking about. They can solve anything. They can figure it out. But there are members of your club that would love to have the opportunity to create social media space for your club. And it can happen. It's not that complicated. Folks in your club already know how to do this. Find them. Now, this is a secret idea. I do not want this to go outside this room. I want a Rotary oath that you will not tell anyone about the super secret idea I'm about to share with you. In Tennessee, there's an organization called the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters. They're in Nashville. Whit Adamson is the president. Nice guy. The Association of Broadcasters are all the radio and television stations in the state. They control all the inventory of all the television stations and radio stations in the state of Tennessee. The super secret idea is that you guys could probably figure out a way to get some spots run in all the markets in Tennessee, radio and television, through working with the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters. And if you worked with your sister district to the west, you would encompass the whole state. It would be very easy because just in my checking, there are members from the Tri-Cities, from Knoxville and Chattanooga that sit on the board of the Association of Broadcasters. If you could find those folks, and you can, and visit with them because they're in your communities, you could pretty quickly put together a statewide campaign whereby Rotary was getting some attention on radio and television stations. Same is true of cable, that you don't have now. But it needs to be done through the Association of Broadcasters because they oftentimes have this inventory that they will donate to charitable organizations, and we would certainly qualify for that. So think about that as a macro opportunity, and I'll share this briefly with you. One of the reasons Rotary clubs have not gotten traction with radio and television in the past is because of the quality of the product that you take to them. It would be very easy for a television station to say to you, well, you know, we would like to help, but this Betamax tape that you brought us, we have no way of playing that. You know what I'm saying? Oh, and this black and white film that you brought in today, we don't do film around here. But the quality issue is essentially gone because you go to the Rotary website and you can download high-definition video that are remarkable images that you then can tailor to your own community. And this 13-year-old that we talked about a few minutes ago, by the way, that kid has powerful tools on his laptop. He can do all the editing you need. He can put all the video keys in, the Chiron and so forth, and you can have a completed package. And the kid walking around with this phone shooting high definition of you or someone in your community that can be inserted into that video from Rotary, you've got a spot. And this is not complicated. You've got the tools. There is no reason for any club in this district or the district to not be in a position to have inventory on television and radio. Not a problem. But again, this is the super secret idea. This is political with a little p, but you guys can make this happen. And frankly, it's a benefit to the Association of Broadcasters. I want to congratulate you. You got a grant. You got a grant. You got big bucks. You got $16,000. What are you going to do with it? One of the things I want you to be really certain you do, and I don't know the details of your grant, one of the things you need to do is to measure the performance, because if you're successful in telling RI when you apply for your next grant, here's what we did, here was the impact we had, here are the measurements, here's the way we evaluated it, they're going to look at that very carefully. And there's a webinar. I don't know anything other than the date of September the 10th that's going to be coming, and you need to be certain that someone in your club is taking part in that. This is what I've been told they're going to be looking at next year at RI in terms of the applications. Sustainability. If you simply say, our application is for 10,000 tent cards to be made for restaurants in our community, and that's it, you don't win. You don't get a grant. Now, 10,000 tent cards as part of an overall campaign could certainly be supported, but it has to be comprehensive, macro, and sustainable. You have people in your clubs that have written grant applications before and that know how to write a compelling case statement. They're words, they're key words that you use in a case statement that get the attention of the folks that are reviewing the application. Don't turn it over to somebody who can't write. And you know what I'm talking about. Measure, measure, measure. Targets, impact, performance. In the last little bullet there, a word I just created, service above selfness. Look at collaboration in your community. There are other organizations that you as a club can collaborate with which will strengthen your application. And it might be the strangest collaboration you've ever imagined, but that's okay. If it has impact and if it can be sustained, you've got a better chance. Now, in the last few minutes here, I apologize for doing this, but it's something I do because I feel I have to. As club president, respect the podium at the Rotary Club of blank. If your clubs are not top, if your programs are not top-notch, if the speakers you have been brought in because they can fog a mirror, you got a problem, okay? If they're warm and still breathing and they're your program, you got a problem. Because you're inviting prospects to be there to enjoy fellowship and a meal, and you're going to put on a show that stinks, guess what the prospect does? He or she is saying to themselves, I got better use of my time. And if you get up there and immediately start to apologize for your program, you got a problem. I'll give you a quick example. The Rotary Club of Lexington, Kentucky, 400 or so members, that program is the most important place in the state of Kentucky at noon on Thursday. We have governors, and I'm talking about real governors, okay? Sorry, Jack. That was a cheap shot. We have real governors that try to get on our program, and they don't. They have to be invited. You don't just show up at the Rotary Club of Lexington and say, I'm here to speak. You have to be invited and vetted. The program chair at our club is the most important person out of those 400 members, because that time at that podium, those 20 minutes, is where civic capital is created in Lexington every Thursday. And if your programs are not doing that, you're failing your responsibility as a civic organization. Face outward. We've talked about that. And I know some of you are probably pretty good at doing that, but let's all recognize that we can do more of that and do it better. I don't need to say appeal to young leaders. You've already talked about that. But there are young leader organizations in many of your communities that you should have access to. You should be finding out who those folks are. They have already organized, and they primarily organize through this. This is where they live. And they are very selective about who they spend time with and how they spend their time. And if you can't adapt to what they're looking for and satisfying their needs, you're always going to have a membership problem. But it's doable. Protect the podium, quality programs, impactful programs, programs that the media wants to come cover. If they're not asking you, we'd like to send a reporter today, does that tell you something about what your program is? Exciting things. And I'm here to serve you. I wish I had a business card, but I haven't been able to get a business card printed. I'm so new. I'm still green, as I said. But that's how you can reach me, and I would be more than pleased to help you in any way that I could to achieve your public relations initiative. We've got a few minutes for questions, and I'd be glad to take any and all. Yes, sir. The point you just made about the podium is really important. Your club of 25 members out in the boondocks, you should feel just as comfortable calling, and I'm making this up, calling the Secretary of State of the state of Tennessee and inviting him or her to be your Rotary Club speaker. Don't think that because you're 25 members, oh, I can't get the governor here. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I can't get the president of the university. Yes, you can. You have to be persistent and invite the highest level leaders and offer them the best podium and opportunity to share their worldview with your community. That's an important role that you can play. And don't be reluctant. I'll give you a great example of what we do at the Lexington Club. The first presentation out of the box at the first of the year is from a professor from the College of Diplomacy at the University of Kentucky. And he comes and he gives a powerful, prepared 30-minute speech on the world. And folks, that club meeting is packed because they know that they're going to hear the unvarnished truth about the world. And at the end of that, half the club boos and half the club cheers because this guy, former State Department official, worked in an embassy, an ambassador, he lets us have it. And he tells it just like it is. And it just causes people to come unraveled. But you know what? We talk about that for weeks. And at the next year, guess what? The room is packed again. We have more guests that day than at any other time of the year. There are things like that that you can do in your club that become the center of activity, the voice in the community. And that's what your podium is. Recognize that and value it. My time is at an end. I've enjoyed being here with you. I will be here throughout the day. Call me. Let me know if I can help. I'll be glad to. Thank you.